The old witch dragged 2 corpses back into the room. Then she cut a piece of skin from her own body. Using a pen, she wrote a spell on the skin. She pried open the corpses' mouths and stuffed the spell inside. After that, she brought in a large amount of bread worms and completely buried the bodies. A mysterious smile appeared on the old woman's face. After an unknown amount of time, the deceased priest awoke from his coffin. But at that moment, he found himself in a dimly lit room, surrounded by mysterious figures draped in black veils. The priest, confused, walked out of the room. When he saw the scene outside, he realized he was in hell. As the priest was investigating his surroundings, 2 grotesque monsters suddenly appeared and led him to a palace. The palace was filled with demons from the depths of hell. Their hideous faces all stared coldly at the priest. These were the demons from various myths. The priest, fighting the fear in his heart, walked through the corridor. After reaching the depths of the palace, he saw a man in a suit with antennae on his head. When the man in the suit retracted his antennae and revealed his face, the priest recognized him as the Demon King who had helped the Pope. Clearly, the Demon King had now become the leader here. He had summoned the priest for cooperation. The Demon King explained that he had always supported both good and evil depending on the need. But now he was facing a new threat. The person did not want power, but nothingness. Nothingness was the most terrifying thing in the world. If allowed to succeed, both the human world and hell would be destroyed. Therefore, the Demon King wanted the priest's help to stop this. Meanwhile, in a prison deep in hell, a group of lost souls were locked in cages awaiting their punishment. Anna's soul was trapped there as well. The grotesque monsters constantly whipped the cages with iron chains, sending sparks flying, which terrified the souls inside. Just then, another monster appeared. As it prepared to punish the souls, the priest arrived just in time and knocked it to the ground. He quickly turned and told Anna in the cage that he would find a way to get her out of there. When the time came, Anna would possess something very important. The priest needed her to protect it with all her strength. No sooner had he finished speaking than the monsters once again surrounded the priest. The priest fled upstairs. He shouted for Anna to find a book and warned her not to look inside it. She was also to find someone named Lombardi, who knew what to do. After saying this, the priest opened the large door of the iron cage, and Anna seized the opportunity to escape, but the monsters followed closely behind her. In her panic, Anna ran to the balcony, but outside, there was a volcano with flowing lava. With no other choice, she ran along the balcony to another room. Inside, the lost souls were undergoing punishment. They had to fill a water basin with their own blood. As soon as Anna entered, she accidentally knocked over their blood, causing immediate unrest among the souls. They all turned and began to approach Anna.
Ven a jugar con nosotros.
Nos dejes.
Soon, the monster behind them arrived. Anna's resistance was completely ineffective against it. The monster simply tossed her against the wall, and she lost all ability to fight back. Just as the demon was about to drag her back to the cage, Anna clung tightly to a nearby pillar. When she woke up, she had successfully become pregnant, but just 2 days later, Anna's belly began to show signs of labor. Parker, seeing this, hurriedly called for a doctor. After several hours of effort, the doctor removed a fleshy ball from Anna's abdomen, and it had grown long legs, resembling those of a spider. The spider monster, which had been hiding under the table, soon fell silent. The next day, the doctor invited several of his colleagues, all renowned professors in the medical field. Faced with the fleshy ball with spider legs, the professors were eager to discover what kind of creature it was. But when they collectively peeled back the skin, the lifeless spider monster suddenly came back to life. It leapt forcefully and landed directly on Anna's body. Seeing this, Parker quickly grabbed a pen and stabbed it. After calming down, Parker discovered a key inside the spider monster's abdomen. The design on it seemed to represent a certain place. Upon investigation, they learned that it was the totem of a nearby academy. So the two of them immediately rushed over with the key. They quickly entered through a side shelf and made their way into the library. There, they began searching for anything related to the key. Strangely, the library even had a small railway built inside. They followed the tracks, and deep within, Anna discovered a hidden large door. Behind it was a narrow secret passage. As they made their way through, they found a chest locked with iron chains. When Anna used the key to unlock the mechanism on the chest, an ancient book rose from inside. This was the book the priest had mentioned. Just as they wondered what its purpose was, a sound of metal clashing came from behind them. A machine, loaded with various weapons, suddenly burst out from behind the bookshelves. After dealing with the enormous robot in front of them, a mechanical bird appeared on the other side. Although it was much faster than the previous robot, it was a bit sluggish when turning. Anna took the opportunity to push a bookshelf over, trapping it underneath. However, as soon as the two of them managed to escape the academy, they were confronted by a group of strange pedestrians outside. They immediately tried to seize the book from Anna. The two of them fled and reached a nearby train station where they encountered a homeless man. The homeless man pretended to be injured, lying on the railroad tracks. Kind-hearted Anna hurried over to help. But to her surprise, the homeless man took the opportunity to snatch the book from her. However, before he could reach the opposite platform, a speeding train crashed into the homeless man. When Anna and Parker arrived at the scene, the homeless man was barely alive, still clutching the book tightly in his hands. The old witch severed the goat's head and drained its blood, then poured the blood into a coffin filled with breadworms. Not long after, the two corpses inside the coffin came back to life. However, since they had been dead for a year, their skin and tissue had decayed beyond recognition. To avoid drawing attention, the witch led the two back to a makeup room. When they saw their faces in the mirror, they were deeply distressed. Their rotten, stinking skin resembled that of zombies. Fabio found a bottle of expired foundation on the table. The two then began applying it with brushes, as if painting a wall, slowly covering their damaged faces. For wounds they couldn't conceal, they used a stapler to forcefully stitch them together. After changing into clean clothes, the two were ready to wander the world of the living once again. Their resurrection was entirely due to the death of Father Lombardi. The day before, Anna and her companions had brought the book to the church, where they met Lombardi. Just as Anna was about to hand over the book, Parker noticed something odd about the people around them and quickly stopped her from handing it over. What they didn't know was that the Lombardi before them was just a puppet. The true mastermind was on a yacht thousands of miles away, controlling the puppet through a clay figure on the table to communicate with them. Suspicious, Anna asked Lombardi about the priest, hoping to learn more. As Pablo, who controlled the puppet, was speaking about the priest, an important meeting required his attention. He handed the control of the puppet to his subordinate, but was unfamiliar with Anna and Parker. After just a few exchanges, Anna and Parker realized something was wrong. The subordinate, nervous, armed the clay figure with a gun and threatened to take the book. In his panic, he accidentally broke the clay figure's arm, and Lombardi's puppet arm also snapped. The dead Lombardi began turning blue, his body crumbling into pieces like clay. Afterward, Anna and Parker went to a cafe to rest. To their surprise, they encountered the real Lombardi there.
Sei Lombardi?
È da molto tempo che l'aspetto. Io sono il vero Lombardi.
Lombardi took them back to the church, where Anna handed him the book. However, when he opened it, the three of them immediately turned their bodies away. The book contained immense power, and looking directly at its contents would blind them. Lombardi raised a mirror above his head to view the book's contents indirectly. From what he saw, the book contained a powerful spell that could summon the Eye of God and restart the world. Since the text was written in the ancient Ica language, Lombardi could only understand a small part. However, he knew that to fully decipher the book, they needed to collect 30 silver coins. The power of these coins could protect them from the book's backlash. All the silver coins had fallen into the hands of Pablo, who was about to conduct a mysterious ritual in Peru. Lombardi suggested that Anna and Parker join him to stop it, Just as the group stepped out of the church, a sudden sense of unease filled Lombardi's heart. A lightning bolt struck a nearby tree, and the fallen branches broke the power lines in front of them. To prevent his decaying skin from falling off, the priest wrapped his body in plastic wrap. He took out a bottle of expired foundation and applied it to his face, carefully spreading it with a brush. After finishing his makeup, he put on a hat and sprayed a few spritzes of perfume. However, when he walked out of the bathroom, he found that the floor was covered in breadworms. Meanwhile, the passengers in the plane's cabin began to smell the strong stench of decay. Fabio quietly took a nearby man's scarf, hoping to cover up his rotting body. But unfortunately, worms kept falling from his pant legs. Soon, the two were escorted off the plane by the flight attendants. As the police officers were about to take them away, the priest pulled out his phone and called Anna, who was waiting in the airport lounge. Upon hearing this, the priest immediately gave Fabio a signal. The two then attacked the airport security guards. Unfazed by the weapons in the officers' hands, the dead priest and Fabio showed no fear. Soon, they had dealt with everyone in their path and arrived in the lobby to meet Anna. Seeing the priest again stirred great emotions in Anna, but the overpowering stench of decay made her tear up. Despite their shared feelings, now was not the time for a reunion. Pablo's men had already tracked them down and surrounded them. Seeing the danger, the priest handed the book to Fabio and urged him to decipher its contents as soon as possible. He then told Anna to go outside and get a car. Once they had both left, the priest stood alone, blocking the many assassins. With the power of his immortality, he successfully stopped all the attackers. Meanwhile, Fabio took the ancient book into the restroom. He used the mirror to reflect the pages while reading. A man exited the bathroom, and Fabio quickly grabbed his head and slammed it into the mirror. Using a shard of glass, he threatened the man to help him turn the pages. The man resisted for a while, but his face soon showed signs of agony. Suddenly, Fabio noticed a string of numbers on one page. He committed them to memory, but by then the man had reached his limit. A fiery heat erupted from his body, and at the same time the priest had already taken care of all the assassins. After reuniting, the two quickly got into the car and left the area. Fabio recorded the numbers on his phone. They had now acquired the most crucial information. There was just one more thing they needed to stop Pablo's plan. The scene then shifted to the Vatican Cathedral, where the two met the current pope. The priest directly stated their purpose. They wanted to borrow the pope's eye of blood staff, which contained the blood of Jesus that was shed during his torture. The suffering of God is the most powerful force in the world. Only it can stand against the 30 pieces of silver. However, after hearing this, the pope was unwilling to lend the staff. He believed that God would never allow harm to come to his people. Seeing how ignorant the old man was, Fabio, filled with anger, activated the power within himself and grabbed the Pope's neck from a distance, lifting him up. The man, dragging his decaying body, sped across the plains. Suddenly, a gunshot knocked his motorcycle over. The violent impact caused his bones to severely deform, but determined to reach his destination as quickly as possible, the priest gritted his teeth against the pain, realigning his broken leg. Using a few wooden planks, he hastily stabilized it and, wrapped in a red carpet, continued on his way. Before long, the priest arrived at an altar. He placed his gear down and took out the staff borrowed from the Pope. Then he reached into his own abdomen and began to feel around. Soon, he pulled out the most crucial item, the eye of blood. After successfully attaching it to the staff, the priest took out his phone and began playing the recording Fabio had made. Using the numbers Fabio had recorded, he slowly turned the dial on the staff, causing the blood of Jesus within to shift and change. Meanwhile, in a massive secret base, Pablo and his 30 trusted followers boarded a spaceship. As the technicians pressed the launch button, the exterior of the ship immediately lit up. A hole in the ground began to open up. Above, a helicopter flew over the priest's head with a massive rock suspended beneath it. A group of workers placed the rock in the center of the altar. Once the spaceship reached the top of the rock, Pablo instructed everyone to close their eyes and take out the silver coins. At this moment, a magical book was handed to the man. As he recited the incantations from the book, the clear sky suddenly darkened. The priest outside watched, unable to tear his gaze away. Soon, a massive eyeball appeared within the dark clouds. Despite the priest's desperate efforts, he was unable to stop the ritual. A beam of energy pushed the spaceship toward the eye. The man chanting the incantation began to bleed from his nose. Pablo, holding the magical book, took over the chanting himself. And with a heart-wrenching scream, the spaceship successfully entered the eye at the last moment. The massive eye of God slowly faded from the sky. As everything settled, the Lord of Hell, the Demon King, appeared before the priest.
Ho sbagliato di nuovo. Quello che è successo e non si può più cambiare.
The Demon King picked up the staff and handed it to the priest, telling him that shattering the Eye of Blood would allow him to leave. The priest walked step by step to the rock. When he forcefully shattered the Eye of Blood on the staff, his entire body slowly began to float into the air. Ultimately, he entered a glowing portal. When he awoke again, the sky above him had returned to its blue color, and there were no signs of destruction around him. Confused, he returned to the small town where everything was peaceful and exactly as it had been before. The villagers were all happy and content. At that moment, the town's police officer approached the mayor, reporting an eerie discovery on the mountain. An alien spacecraft had suddenly landed deep in a valley. When the priest followed the villagers to the site, everything became clear to him. It turned out that the Eye of God did not lead to another world. It only sent people into a time tunnel, back to the past. The so-called world reboot was nothing more than the beginning of the next cycle. An elderly man walked into a bank alone to commit a robbery. He made no effort to conceal his identity and showed no reaction even when security guards opened fire on him. Despite being shot multiple times, the old man remained expressionless. After taking down several guards, he entered the vault and planted a small bomb at a specific location. Soon, a box of cash was retrieved, but the old man showed no interest in the money. Instead, he took a single silver coin from the stash. When he emerged from the vault, the police had already sealed off the area. Yet the old man calmly absorbed every bullet fired at him and strode outside to get into a waiting car. Inside the vehicle, a man dressed in black removed a necklace from the old man's neck, causing the elderly robber to instantly revert to a lifeless state. The man in black also took the silver coin from his hand. This was no ordinary silver coin. Legend has it that when Judas betrayed Jesus, leading to his crucifixion on the cross, the Romans paid Judas 30 silver coins. Overcome with guilt after witnessing Jesus' suffering, Judas took his own life by hanging. Those 30 silver coins were then scattered across the world. According to the myth, anyone who gathers all the coins will gain unparalleled power. Meanwhile, at a remote farm, something strange occurred. While helping a cow give birth, veterinarian Elena pulled a baby boy out of the animal's womb instead of a calf. The shocking scene left everyone around her stunned. The mayor, upon hearing the news, immediately arrived at the scene. He ordered everyone to keep the event a secret and took Elena to consult the local priest. The bizarre situation left even the priest in disbelief. They reviewed the footage taken during the delivery and noticed a suspicious-looking homeless man. It seemed possible that he had swapped the calf with the baby boy while Elena was momentarily distracted. The group decided to search the homeless man's shelter. However, as they searched for clues, the church bells suddenly began to ring. On the roof of a nearby building stood the homeless man, holding the baby boy and chanting some kind of incantation. When the priest and the others climbed to the roof to stop him, the homeless man dangled the baby in mid-air, claiming that the child was the reincarnation of the devil. Fortunately, Elena intervened just in time, managing to calm the man and persuade him to hand over the baby. The child was saved. But before jumping to his death, the homeless man turned to the priest and muttered something cryptic. Elena entrusted the baby to the care of the farm owner and then turned her attention back to the homeless man. On the ground near his body, she discovered a silver coin. Additionally, the man had been carrying a Bible, though he was illiterate and couldn't possibly have read it. The mayor suspected that someone was orchestrating these events from the shadows. Based on the strange words the homeless man uttered before his death, they began to suspect the priest. Their investigation revealed that the priest was not only a former exorcist, but also responsible for the death of a person in the past. The next morning, Elena confronted the priest and shared everything she had uncovered. The priest did not deny anything upon hearing Elena's accusations. Instead, he openly admitted to his past sins. Years ago, he had been invited to perform an exorcism on a young boy. However, the ritual did not go as planned. Holy water and crucifixes had no effect on the boy. Just as the priest was at a loss for what to do, the boy unexpectedly pressed a silver coin out from his arm. At the time, the priest had no idea what the coin meant, but the boy lost his life immediately after removing it. Everyone present blamed the priest for the boy's death, leading him to abandon his identity and move to this remote town. The priest didn't explain the significance of the silver coin, merely stating that it was an ordinary piece of metal. Before leaving, he handed the coin to Elena. What Elena didn't anticipate was how drastically this coin would change her life. As she prepared to leave in her car, the farm owner suddenly appeared in front of her, blocking her path. He invited her back to his home to check on the baby boy. What she saw upon arrival left her utterly shocked. In just 2 days, the baby had learned to walk and had grown to a height of nearly 5 feet 7 inches. Realizing something was wrong, the farm owner decided to send the child to an orphanage. However, his wife accused him of trying to take the child away from her. While he was unguarded, she stabbed him to death with a metal skewer. Surprisingly, the woman showed no signs of grief after the murder. Instead, she began preparing breakfast for the child, a gruesome mix of fresh liver and milk. Soon, a high-protein drink was ready. Meanwhile, Elena drove off and went to the mayor to tell him about the baby's rapid growth. The two of them quickly headed back to the farm, only to find the house covered in thick spider webs. Inside, they discovered a giant cocoon hanging from the ceiling. Inside the cocoon was the corpse of the man who had been stabbed. As they prepared to head upstairs to investigate further, the elderly woman suddenly appeared before them.
El niño es mío.
In a panic, Elena and the mayor tumbled down the stairs. Injured, the mayor was quickly grabbed by the woman, who dragged him by the hair. Realizing she was no match for the woman, Elena fled to seek help. On the way, she encountered the priest and a group of officers. After hearing what happened, they called for backup and rushed to the scene. By the time they arrived, the mayor had been fully wrapped in a cocoon and hung from the ceiling. The woman, meanwhile, gleefully showed off a toy she held in her hand. With every move she made, a loud thumping sound echoed from upstairs. The priest, shocked by the sight of the web-covered house, found it hard to believe what he was seeing. The woman approached him calmly, and he began to engage her in conversation, stalling for time while an officer quietly circled around behind her.
Molto tempo non ci vediamo.
The woman appeared possessed by an evil spirit. She lunged at the priest, grappling with him, and demanded that he hand over the silver coin. During the struggle, another officer aimed his gun at her, attempting to intervene. But by then, the woman had completely lost her sense of self. She stared blankly at the officer as she approached him. An ambulance soon arrived to transport both the mayor and the woman to the hospital. Meanwhile, Elena went upstairs to search for the boy, only to find that the nursery was empty. All that remained on the floor was a shed human skin. At the same time, the supposedly dead woman suddenly sat up in the ambulance. She slowly pulled out a toy from her bag and whispered to it. Moments later, a spider-like creature appeared on the road, causing the ambulance to lose control and overturn. As a series of menacing growls drew closer, the ambulance's door was violently ripped off. The old woman left the scene with the spider creature, disappearing into the darkness. Meanwhile, the priest brought Elena back to the church. He knew the old woman would eventually return for him, so he opened a long-sealed secret chamber hidden within the church. Inside, the walls were lined with weapons and ammunition. As the priest prepared himself, the sound of shattering glass echoed from outside. He told Elena to hide in the chamber while he went out to investigate. Inside the church, an unseen force began shaking the pews. The old woman appeared and quickly overpowered the priest, knocking him unconscious with a single blow. Hearing the commotion, Elena emerged from the chamber, but was immediately struck down by the old woman, forcing her to retreat into the prayer room. Just as the old woman was about to drag Elena out, the priest regained consciousness and pulled the old woman away. He rushed to the font of holy water and began blessing bullets, knowing this was the only way to purge the evil possessing the old woman. When he saw her attempting to control the spider creature again, he took aim and fired. Afterward, the priest carried the old woman's lifeless body out of the church. Elena, still hiding in the prayer room, was left wide-eyed with terror. But before she could catch her breath, the spider creature tracked her down. It had now mutated into a far more horrifying form, resembling an alien-like monstrosity. Holding her breath to remain silent, Elena tried to stay hidden, but the creature's heightened sense of smell led it straight to her. In her panic, Elena managed to call the mayor. Hearing that she was trapped in the church with the monster, the mayor revealed a crucial piece of information. The old woman's toy was the creature's weakness. Destroying it would drive the monster away. With no other choice, Elena burst out of the prayer room and set her sights on the toy. Not long after the incident, new strange events began to unfold. Through the mirror, Elena spotted a mysterious book. When she turned to look behind her, nothing was there in the real world. Puzzled, Elena took a picture of the book's name with her phone and researched it online. The book was The Gospel of Judas, which chronicled the life and deeds of Jesus. Once again, the case seemed to tie back to the church, prompting them to call the priest for help. Faced with this bizarre phenomenon, even the priest was initially skeptical. To test the mirror, he scratched a line on the table, and the same line appeared in the mirrored image. However, something unsettling stood out. In the mirror, the door was open, but in reality, it was firmly shut. The priest approached the mirror, attempting to open the reflected door, but his hand merely waved back and forth in the reflection. It became clear that another world might exist within the mirror. Determined to uncover the truth, the priest decided to spend the night in the house to investigate, sending Elena and the mayor away. Unbeknownst to the priest, the mayor had installed cameras in the room, allowing them to monitor him through their phones. That night, the priest sat before the mirror holding a crucifix. He seemed to have figured something out, but needed confirmation. As midnight approached, exhaustion took over, and the priest fell asleep. It was then that the reflection in the mirror moved. The mirrored version of the priest stood up, staring at the real priest with a sinister grin. The next morning, Elena and the mayor returned to the house. The mayor showed the priest the footage from the previous night. Seeing his mirrored self stand up, the priest's expression turned to one of horror. Grabbing a hammer, he moved to smash the mirror, but the shadowy figure in the reflection stepped forward and spoke. It asked to talk to the priest alone. Reluctantly, Elena and the mayor left the room, intending to observe the conversation through the cameras. However, they discovered that the priest had destroyed all the cameras, preventing anyone from overhearing their exchange. Inside, the priest raised his hammer, ready to shatter the mirror, when the reflection spoke again, uttering a name that froze the priest in his tracks. Then, the shadowy figure stepped aside to reveal a dried-up corpse that it pushed out from the mirrored world.
Giacomo, perdonami.
The desiccated corpse clung tightly to the priest, dragging him into the mirror world. When Elena and the mayor burst into the room, the shattered mirror had already returned to its original pristine state. Unaware that the person before them was the shadowy doppelganger, they followed the priest to the church. There, he began to recount a long-hidden secret. Centuries ago, a heretical cult had emerged in opposition to Jesus. They believed that committing acts of evil was the only way to ascend closer to God. This heresy was fundamentally at odds with Christianity and had spent years destroying holy relics associated with Jesus. These relics, imbued with protective powers, shielded humanity from dark forces. The most powerful of these relics were the 30 silver coins left behind by Judas Iscariot. If the heretics were to gather all the coins, they would gain the power to obliterate Christianity entirely. To Elena's shock, the priest revealed that she was in possession of one of these coins. He proposed that she hand it over to him for safekeeping, ostensibly to prevent it from falling into the hands of the heretics. But something in the priest's gaze unsettled Elena. Sensing that something was off, she didn't confront him directly. Instead, she excused herself, saying she needed to return home to retrieve the coin. Back home, Elena retrieved the coin and prepared to destroy it. Despite her suspicions, she still couldn't be entirely sure whether the person standing before her was the real priest. As she was about to hand over the coin, she noticed something strange. The priest's wristwatch had its numbers reversed, like a mirrored reflection. In that instant, she realized the truth. This was the shadowy doppelganger from the mirror world. Acting quickly, Elena shoved him aside and ran back into her house. From the window, she saw the shadow vanish without a trace. Knowing the real priest was likely trapped in the mirror world, Elena and the mayor returned to the house to investigate, but they had no idea how to access the mirror's other side. Elena reached out and touched the place where she had previously seen the book through the mirror. To her surprise, Together, they stepped through the mirror and navigated through a series of rooms until they arrived at an opulent palace. Inside the palace, 4 large mirrors lined the walls, each corresponding to different locations in the real world. Through one mirror, they saw a group of red-robed cardinals gathered in a room. In the center of the group was a black-clad figure, bound and hooded. The lead cardinal lifted a dagger and ceremonially kissed it before passing it around for the others to bless. Once the ritual was complete, an assistant pulled off the hood of the black-clad figure, revealing the priest. Elena and the mayor watched in horror as the cardinals each pulled out pendants containing the silver coins they had collected. When the priest refused to divulge the location of the remaining coins, the lead cardinal signaled for his assistant to proceed. Panicking, Elena pressed her coin against the mirror. The mayor carried the injured priest, fleeing through the opulent palace into the mirror world. Upon reaching the shattered mirror's exit, they successfully returned to reality. As they crossed over, the mirror world vanished, leaving behind only a plain wooden wall. After this harrowing experience, Elena finally grasped the horrifying power of Judas's silver coin. Determined to rid herself of it, she drove to a bridge and tossed the coin into the river. But things were never going to be that simple. The coins of Judas couldn't be discarded so easily. Meanwhile, in the village's farmland, an old woman stealthily lifted the clothes of a scarecrow, pulling a wallet from within. Inside, there was a photograph of a happy couple. She looked at it with a sinister smile before pouring a strange potion onto the ground near the scarecrow. Moments later, the scarecrow's body began to change. Its withered branches were enveloped by an unnatural energy, and its straw hands transformed into human flesh. By morning, the scarecrow had fully transformed into a living man. His body was covered in dried dirt, and he ignored the wary stares of villagers as he walked away. Returning to a house, he began cleaning the dust and grime from his body. Elsewhere, Elena was heading out with her new boyfriend, ready for a trip. As they waited at the station, the mayor suddenly arrived with a group of officers. To her shock, the man they had apprehended was her long-lost husband, who had disappeared years ago. But how could he be alive now? Under the mayor's escort, they went to the police station. Seeing the man's face up close, Elena was overwhelmed. This was indeed her husband. Tears filled her eyes as she reunited with him, oblivious to the old woman watching them from a distance. News of the man's return quickly spread throughout the town. However, one local hunter reacted with terror. He sought out Elena and her husband to confirm the truth. Upon seeing the man, the hunter collapsed in fear. That night, the hunter forcibly broke into Elena's home, shooting at the man without hesitation. Police arrived just in time to stop him, but when they tried to disarm him, the hunter resisted, forcing them to shoot and injure his arm. Once subdued, the hunter confessed the truth. Years ago, he had killed Elena's husband. To confirm the hunter's claim, the mayor and police went to the location he described. There, they unearthed a human skull, proving the hunter's story to be true. Meanwhile, Elena and her husband were driving home, discussing their plans for the future. But during their conversation, the man suddenly brought up the silver coin. He urged Elena to hand it over to those people. Though his words puzzled her, Elena casually mentioned that she had thrown the coin into the river. The man's demeanor instantly changed. Enraged, he slapped Elena across the face, then grabbed her head and slammed it against the car window. Carrying her limp body, the man arrived at a gas station where another driver was refueling his car. Without hesitation, the man brutally attacked the driver, knocking him out with a series of punches. Grabbing the fuel nozzle, he forcefully poured gasoline down the unconscious driver's throat. As she regained consciousness, Elena secretly sent a message to the mayor. Once the mayor learned of their exact location, he quickly mobilized the police to take action. At that moment, the man had taken Elena to the bridge, the very place where she had discarded the silver coin. The man urged Elena to climb over the guardrail, intending to jump down and retrieve the coin from the river. Just as he was about to leap, the mayor and officers arrived in time to grab hold of Elena. The man was left dangling in midair. In a fit of rage, Elena stomped on his head repeatedly. After several violent blows, the man's body disintegrated into dust and fell into the water below. The next day, a worker pulled a fish from the ocean and transported it to a high-end restaurant. While preparing the fish for a customer, the chef was startled when a silver coin fell out of its belly. A man nearby noticed and quickly took the coin. It was the same coin that Elena had discarded. Unaware of its sinister significance, the man felt a strange sense of fate. and decided to wrap it up and present it to Elena the next day. Elena initially thought he was proposing to her, but upon seeing the coin, she froze in fear. Her mind flashed back to the Scarecrow's warning that the coin would return to her. She hadn't expected it to happen so soon. Panicking, Elena rushed to the bathroom and called the mayor to tell him what had happened. As they were speaking, an old man wearing a necklace entered the restaurant. Without a word, he shot and killed the man who had given Elena the coin before starting to search the restaurant for the silver coin. The security guards tried to stop him, but the old man seemed impervious to the bullets. During the struggle, one of the guards managed to tear the necklace from his neck, and the old man finally collapsed, dead. Relieved to have narrowly escaped, Elena looked at the box where the coin had been, only to find it was now missing. Just as she panicked, the coin appeared at her feet. It was clear that she couldn't escape this fate. With no other option, Elena decided to seek the priest's help. Meanwhile, a stranger arrived in town, claiming to be a priest sent by the church. The mayor's wife, upon hearing this, arranged for his accommodations. The next day, the man secretly sought out the witch and handed her a bag. The witch quickly poured its contents, worms and black soil, around the perimeter of the town. By evening, white smoke began to rise from the ground. At first, the townspeople thought it was caused by someone dumping pollutants into the sewers. But as time passed, the smoke showed no signs of dissipating, and they soon realized the gravity of the situation. The police officers attempted to drive out to seek help, but when they reached the door, they were stopped by an invisible, transparent wall. Before long, Elena returned to the town with the silver coin. She was shocked by the sight before her, but she noticed that the white smoke seemed to be contained within the town, and the transparent barrier did not stop anyone from entering. As soon as Elena stepped into the town, the cultists sensed her presence. The witch pretended to be injured, drawing Elena's attention, and led her to the mayor's residence. Once Elena entered a room alone, they called for the mayor's wife. Seeing the two of them on the bed, the mayor's wife immediately attacked Elena. When the mayor rushed down to stop her, the wife managed to snatch the silver coin from Elena. She quickly ran outside to find the man and handed the coin to him. Meanwhile, the priest was in his armory, preparing for battle. He soaked his bullets in holy water, readying himself for the coming fight between humans and demons. When the mayor and Elena arrived, they also armed themselves and joined him. The trio entered the smoke and began chanting the demon's name loudly. Not long after, the ground trembled, and a demon with antennae emerged from below, covered in hellish spirits. However, when the demon transformed into a human-like figure, it proved to be much more powerful. Unable to defeat it, the group retreated into a basement for safety. Whenever tourists came to town, the demon would have the villagers capture them and drag them to the church, forcing them to partake in the Holy Communion. Anyone who consumed it would become the demon's slave. Now, all the townspeople had lost their free will, with only Elena and the others remaining conscious in the basement. To track the demon, the priest shattered a long-honored sacred relic and used the blood of Christ smeared on his eyes, allowing him to see through the eyes of a white dove. With Elena and the mayor's help, the priest sent the dove to search the town. Soon, he discovered traces of the demon in the church. The church had been converted into a slaughterhouse by the cultists, who had used the skins of animals to create a holy garment for an upcoming coronation. After locating the church, the priest and the others hurried through a secret tunnel. However, halfway there, the mayor's wife emerged, attacking Elena. The mayor raised his gun to intervene, but the wife ignored him and drove a silver needle into Elena's neck before turning and walking away. The confused mayor rushed ahead to find the priest, but when the two returned, Elena had vanished from the tunnel. At this moment, dozens of black cars arrived in the town, and from them, priests from all over the world descended. The most important of them was the leader of the cult. Seeing this, the demon personally went to the door to greet them. They had been preparing for this day for a long time, and now, with all 30 silver coins gathered, the cult leader was ready to harness the power inside them. Once he succeeded, he would control the entire world. Meanwhile, the priest and the mayor made their way through the tunnel and reached the church. Inside, the mayor found Elena unconscious. However, the priest was inexplicably drawn to a room. The walls were covered with animal skulls, and the cult leader was standing there performing a ritualistic cleansing. The demon then appeared from the side. The priest swung his fists, attempting to fight, but his attacks had no effect. When the 30 silver coins were successfully placed together, the cult leader took the spearhead that had once pierced Jesus and thrust it into the priest's body. Wearing the crown, he approached the window, and the priests below erupted in applause. Just as the cult leader began to give an impassioned speech, a white dove suddenly flew in from a distance and attacked him. At the same time, the priest, enduring great pain, pulled the spear from his body. The scattered silver coins instantly caused chaos as the priests scrambled to grab them. No one cared about the cult leader's fate. They only sought the power within the coins. Soon, the priests, with the coins in hand, left the church. One of the coins ended up in the hands of the mayor's wife, who departed the town with one of the priests. As the demon looked at the two bodies lying on the ground, he was filled with mixed emotions. With his plans completely thwarted, the demon decided to change his form and leave. Using a mirror, he traveled to the heart of New York City, where he planned to establish his own church.